this modern recruiting shift, and I know you just recruited, but how do you feel about this new shift to how to recruit, marketing, branding, and how all that ties into recruiting?
I think it depends on which lens you're asking. Are you a college coach? Are you a media company? What are you? Because it changes whichever platform that you're offering
How about as
to.
a parent or a girl dad? Because that's who watches our show a lot, and coaches. I've had some coaches on here.
Yeah, I think my thing is what people fail to realize is that yes, NIL is a part of recruiting, but NIL is a short lived experience if the human experience or the environment in which the athlete exists in is not understanding who they are. If it can't
Right.
hold it, you have to be able to hold the personality. There are athletes who come from Canada and the UK and other places, and it's a cultural difference. So, what are you doing when you recruit athletes who are not from America and have different ways that they've lived? How are you integrating all the things that we do in the US and all the things that other people do across the countries? And just kind of understanding like who these people are, really getting to know them, doing your homework like you did, like you're saying on this show. I think them understanding that you've thought about them before they got there and it's not just thrown together. And, let's say like if I'm recruiting a girl and I've watched them through seventh grade, I talk about the evolution. I remember when you did this. I remember when you used to wear the two braids or the puffball. And then they're like, what? You've been watching me for that long? That's so crazy, because I genuinely love what I do. So I think there's a difference between people who, are late to the party and they understand who athletes are in terms of their elite level. It's too late. Sometimes you got to grow with the athlete as well. So there's that form of recruiting, right? And then there's also the recruiting that's like, I see your value in the marketplace. I think that you would be great for this brand, or I think you'd be great for this brand of basketball, meaning whatever school you're choosing, because your schools you're choosing are brands of basketball as well, the coaches. How can your personality, your personal brand, if you've been a part of Overtime, you're going into college with an audience, how are you meshing with that brand? Whether that's
Right.
Kim Mulkey, right? Whether it's Gino Oriema, those are brands in itself in terms of a coach. Then the UConn program is a brand in itself. And so how are you fitting in an additive to that? And you see that with like AZ Fudd and Paige and how they really mesh, because one, they had the two Minnesota stories, right? Origin stories separate. They tore their ACLs, they came back, they overcome challenges. And Gino also respects them for their fight and for, hurting, getting being hurt and then having the resilience to continue to come back year over year despite the challenges. And then you see them, kind of living in that challenge, but that glory of like finally, we've figured out how to master that mental stress that comes along with that. So it's like all of those things become a part of your brand. You tear your ACL, you come back and again, that becomes your brand. Now you're resilient. So if I'm, coming up, if I have a brand that is talks about resilience, AZ Futter or Paige is going to be the person that I choose. So all the things that you do naturally as a person become who you are. And so recruiting has to mimic that as well. And it has to show the parents and the player that I can hold everything that you are without trying to dim your light.
Well, I
And
think college
right.
coaches need to understand what you just said about, because I get on and I talk to coaches and girl dads of players
Yeah.
about being able to get to know that person. They don't want to know what you do. They want to know who you are. For
Yeah.
me, when I say they want to know what coaches, you can tell me I'm a family. You can say all this stuff, but I need to know who you are. And back to what you were saying about, I need to know what your story is. Tell me,
Yeah.
what can you do with me here? And a lot of coaches hasn't evolved to that point yet. They
And you know
haven't
why they
evolved
haven't
to it.
evolved is because they're in their bubble for such a long cycle, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that they go through their recruiting window, live period, AAU tournaments, and then when you go to AAU tournaments, you look at coaches and they all have their polos on, they have their college uniform on, they eat together, they dine together, they are communal. And so when you're only around your kind all the time, and the world is evolving externally, it's hard to kind of understand and keep up with the fast paced world of sport and business and
Yeah.
marketing and
Yeah.
all these things. And so I wish there was a way to bridge